So I would love to hear from people if you've never done a CMA before or a market valuation for a listing. Morgan, Stephanie, there's going to be a lot of people, so I think that that's pretty normal. And then a lot of folks have already done a lot of them. Some people have been in the business for 10, 15 years. I see you, I recognize you there. Some are brand new and they just want to know how if they're going to meet a client in front of maybe some other competition from other agents, how they're going to win that. It's actually going to be the same exact way that these agents that have been in the business for a while, because you would be really surprised. A lot of agents have no idea how they price houses. So whether you're brand new to the business or you've been in the business for a long time, unless you're competing against, agents here at KWPS that have taken this class, you're going to be able to win those. All right, so let's begin. I'm going to share my screen now, so you don't have to stare at my face, and make sure I get on the right one. Hold on. Is it sharing the screen? No. Is it sharing the screen now?
Yes.
Okay, good, perfect. Yeah, feel free to just join in and pop in and say a word if you need to. Okay, so we're going to start this understanding market valuations and winning listings. One of the things here to really keep in mind is that a lot of deals can fall apart, especially in a market like this, if they don't appraise. So while this is used to help your clients find their listing price, it's used for you to win listings because you're the professional and you know what you're doing in the market. And then, of course, sometimes it's used to combat low appraisals, if that does come up in an offer as well. Most of the time, I'd say the biggest thing that I love out of this, and the most common one, is that I don't have to fight with my sellers about price. First of all, they know that I'm that professional in the market that knows what I'm talking about, and I can speak very clearly on price, which a lot of times maybe in the past we're like, well, I feel like this is the price, but we don't have that authority to really say we were very confident in that price. As well as the last thing is, if we get multiple offers on our offers, how do we strategize with our sellers to make sure that that's something that works for them as well? So we'll go through the basics. What is a market valuation? A market valuation is different than appraisal. It is our opinion on the price. But in this class, we're going to teach you similar techniques to what an appraiser uses. So while we are not appraisers, we can absolutely not tell our clients that we are appraisers. We can say that we studied their systems and the way that they do it, and we really want to be right on target with them, because we know that if a house does not appraise, we absolutely cannot sell it unless somebody provides cash, which is going to be more irregular. Do you need to know what an appraisal consists of? Yes. Again, it's really going to be super critical to actually getting your house to close and the sale to be completed for it to appraise. So if we go way up from market value, for instance, what are some special skills that we'll need to be able to use since we're very confident in our appraisal price? It asks, what is the assessed value? That's actually a different schematic. That really has to do with what the tax, our governing bodies figure out what our tax rate is on our house. So they're assessing the value. Hopefully, in most cases, it's about 10 to 15% below the market value, because you don't want to be taxed higher. You want to be taxed lower, right? And then how can you use this to win listings? I think the number one thing that most people share with me on this is when they walk in and they can say, hey, here's the system, here's the technique that we use to do it. We're going to use it in the same way an appraiser does, to the best of our ability. People automatically go, oh, okay, I can't do that on my own. I don't know those skills as a homeowner that maybe consider listing their own house. Or I don't have the ability to keep up with that kind of market. This person really is a professional. They know what they're talking about. Does that make sense to everybody? Okay. 3 different appraisal approaches. So there's the sales comparison approach here. That's going to be most common that we're going to use in resale of homes. So when we're selling people's homes that are already built, we're going to use that sales comparison approach. This is what we're going to also learn today. the cost approach is going to be used more in the new construction and depreciation kind of department there. And then the income approach will be used for all sorts of things. Commercial property has some income approach to it. The investment properties do. I know somebody asked about some investment properties and how to get those the other day. I can help with that if that comes up. But income approach kind of combines what would be normally the cost comparison approach as well as potential income that comes from that property. So for instance, on a duplex that I just had done, they really compared it very similar to all of the single family homes in the area and then added just a little bit of the fact that it's above market rents for rent. It adds a little bit of value there, but we won't go into that too detailed today. So let's just step into it. Before I do, does anyone have any questions? No. Okay. Speak up if you want to. Stop me if you want to, you guys. I'm super happy to help you with all of that. So we're going to kind of go through some details today. I'm going to go rattle through some numbers. They're actually all in my head. And I'm constantly keeping aware of these by actually generating or asking my buyers to send me their appraisals. So if anyone wants to know how or why I have these numbers or I created this class, it's because back in the day, we used to get some low appraisal problems as we first started, that market first started to escalate. And I was actually able to beat those low appraisals by combating them. So when I started to research appraisals, that's where I started to come up with these numbers. I want to start this by telling you that appraisers are all individual people. And so, in fact, I've reviewed some appraisals lately where the numbers seem all over the board. They're very inconsistent. These numbers that we have on this class are based on the average or the most common numbers that are used for this. So for instance, when they do an appraisal, they're going to be picking the most common best comps to your property. So if I have a property, they're going to find the ones that are going to be in 2 miles of the property, most average. Similar bedrooms and bathrooms, they don't have to be exact. Similar style, so it always has to be a 1-story if it's a 1-bedroom, things like that, or 1-story if it's another 1-story. You can't use a tri-level, for instance, with a 1-story house, if that makes sense. So we'll go through these. The difference between the square footage for your sale and the competition is $29 a square foot for Pierce County and Thurston County, and $45 a square foot for King County and Snohomish County. Let me just do a little calculator on here. Can you see that? Shake your head. Lindsay, I can see you at the very bottom of my screen the best. So I'm using you to make sure. So for instance, if my house is 1,500 square feet and one of my comps is 1,000 square feet, I'm going to say the difference between my house and that one is 500, and it's in King County. So I'm going to times it times $45 a square foot. That's quite a big difference, right? And I'll show you how to do that. We'll actually use this together, and we'll do one together, if that makes sense.
Anna, can I ask a question?
Yes.
So when it shows what the square footage is on the MLS, which is dollar amount is like $200 a square foot.
Very different, right? Yeah.
Yes.
I get that question all the time, and it's absolutely, your buyers or sellers are going to ask the same question as well. So the easy answer is that an appraiser adjusts each specific area of the home. They're just not an overall. So for instance, they're going to be adjusting in and out the bedrooms, right? They have their own value, bathrooms, garage bays, things like that. So when they're pocketing these individual things, they have their own value. Does that make sense, Brenda, at all?
Well, I kind of explain it to my buyers that, they're taking in the overall thing. Yeah. But I'm still kind of confused on the $45 versus the 200. How come it's, yeah. Cause I usually do when I'm figuring a price point, I use what the houses are going for per square foot times the square foot. And kind of, that's where I start before I see the house. And then I know what I'm working with. But
yeah,
if I'm looking at a comp that closed, 6 months ago, and I'm only adding $45 a square foot, then I would think that I would be coming in a little low. No. Okay.
Well, I mean, if you're in a market like ours today, your
Yeah.
comps are going to be much more recent, right? They're not going to be
Right.
6 months ago.
I
And
seem to
so-
get a lot of really individualistic type of properties, you know, shop and acreage. And so I'm always stumbling. It's never in a neighborhood.
Right. Not as many comps out there for them or things like that. And that's okay. I can walk you through that a little bit, but
Okay.
in most cases, you know, gosh, they're going to be so recent. We're going to have stuff within the last 3 weeks, right? Although we do have a shortage of housing, so we don't have as many comps as we wish we had at this time. The truth is we have stuff within the last 3 months or 1 month or whatever, and it's not going to be as far back as 6 months. And so those comps are just going to reflect the rising price. The $45 a square foot is not going to change because your comps are your comps, right? If their comps are rising in value, your value is rising. You still have to adjust per the square footage of it. And I haven't seen the square footage change much yet for any of the appraisals that we've been getting through. So it's really not changed. In fact, a couple of years ago, as we were going up and up, we went up to about $50 a square foot, and then it went right back down to 45 in King County and Snohomish County. But let me give you an example. If I'm in Seattle, how could Seattle be the same as, say, Federal Way, right, at $45 a square foot? Well, the easy answer is that the comps are $780,000 in this city in Seattle, and then they're, you know, $380,000 in this neighborhood in Federal Way. So the comps themselves are going to make those adjustments, the big adjustments there. If it's more than 6 months ago, I do try to make an adjustment just for the market, just since we know that the market, but understand that since we're doing this just like an appraiser does, the appraiser is going to find the same comps. So we really want to stick with the same formula, because if we can't find comps, that's going to be a problem for that appraiser as well. They're going to have to go out and try to search things either further back or further out, if that makes sense. So does that help, Brenda?
Sorry, I had to unmute. Yes, that helps. Thank you. I'll ask
you are telling them right. When we look on Zillow or Redfin or something that says $219 a square foot or whatever, my gosh, it's very confusing to people. Be like, well, why wouldn't I just multiply it like 219? Because that encompasses everything: the land, the upgrades, you know, the garage bays, the bedrooms, and they're breaking this down into individual things. So
great, thank you.
Each bedroom is $5,000 per bedroom. I haven't seen that very much at all. I will definitely tell you as I keep up to date if there's been new changes lately. Bathrooms are about $2,500 for a half bath, $5,000 for a 3/4 bath, and $7,500 for a full bath. A lot of times these prices have to do with what it would take to actually just build that. So for instance, to go from a half bath to a full bath and you're adding a tub and things like that, it might be about $2,500. So a lot of them still reflect that cost to build method, but it's pretty standard throughout all of these just to find those numbers. So it's just easy to memorize them. Garage bays, each one is about $10,000. That also applies for carports, as much as I hate it. So a garage bay is about $10,000 per bay, including the door, and obviously these have more value than, for instance, a carport does. A carport, when I do them, I just give them about $5,000 per thing, and an appraiser can go back and forth each way. I see garages go from $10,000 to $7,500, and a carport really in the full scheme of things, well, it is covered parking, and so it has some value. I mean, let's be honest, it doesn't have the same market value, right? I mean, parking in a carport versus having a nice closed garage is just not the same for your clients either. So we give it about $5,000 per garage bay. So the same thing for the garage shops, Brenda, is that the shops, if it has room for 10 cars, it's $10,000 per bay. If it's really more like a 4-car shop or something like that, it would be value of about $40,000. That helps a lot of the guys too that come in and they're like, but I got a shop. It must be worth $90,000. So valuable to me, right? And the truth is, it's just really about $10,000 per bay. So lots and acreage, that one came up for you too, Brenda, is that residential lots are usually about $2 a square foot. Boy, I don't see a whole lot of difference in that in the residential lot. So a residential lot meaning it's in a regular lot size, somewhere under 10,000 square feet or under an acre, and it can't be subdivided, for instance, in most cases. So if it's going to be a larger acreage lot, a lot of times they have zoning like RA 2.5, RA 5, or RA 10, which means it's a residential acreage and you can't have more than one house per 10 acres, for instance, on RA 10. Those, there's a lot of complicated ways to do that. The easiest way that I've just found through going through every possible detail, because I'm a detail person, you can't figure that out, is just about $1 per square foot difference. So if you have 125,000 square foot lot and you have the comparable is 100,000, it's going to be about a $25,000 difference. Does that make sense? Shake your head yes or no. Okay, I love seeing your faces, by the way. I miss you.
Anna, can I ask a question?
Yeah.
It's Tracy. Hey, so when you did the square feet on the house, I see you have a difference between $29 per square foot in Pierce and $45 for King County. And then down here where you have the dollar per square foot for, let's say, a lot to an acreage, is that standard for Pierce and King? Isn't it more expensive for King?
No, because again, those comps are going to make that adjustment by themselves, if that makes sense. So if you're just doing land by itself, this probably is not going to be the assessment for it. That's a very different thing. We would actually make them apples to apples based on other vacant lots that have just sold. But if this one is included in a house, you know, in Seattle, again, you're going to have a house that's worth $750,000, where a like kind one in Federal Way is $350,000, right?
Right.
So that the adjustments by them, the actual comps by themselves are going to make that adjustment. The dollar per square foot is the same.
Even on the land, though, that's more what I was wondering. Like, okay.
And on the land, unless we're talking about stuff that's going to be subdivided, split, sold, that's much different ratios. So if it's like if it's an R10 in Seattle and it's a half acre, boy, you're going to have a lot of extra value there, right? You know, what is it going to be per lot? Is it 110 per lot, you know, just for that half acre, and 400 and some odd $1,000, or what is it going to be? So we can dive into that maybe on a different class, like if you end up getting land, but the actual comps themselves will make that difference in the price and the $1 per square foot on the acreage that's not usable. So let's be really clear about that. If it's acreage, but you can't just subdivide it, it's about $1 per square foot. If it's just a residential lot that can't be subdivided, it's $2 per square foot. Does that make sense?
Thank you. Yep.
I think so. And I have a question as well. Just want to make sure I'm following this. So when we're given like a kind of a standard, like $5,000 per bedroom, $2,500 per half bath, is that the same if you're like comparing a property? I'm sorry if this question was already asked, but is it the same like if you're comparing a property in Pierce County or something like in Seattle, for instance?
It's the same. I get them from all over the places we sell them. So every single month I'm able to compare different appraisals from different areas, rural and residential and those kinds of things. The only real difference is luxury properties. They have some different structures there. But again, if it's really like if you're in Pierce County and you've got a house, the bedroom of a square box is really about still the 5,000, right? It's still got that value of the 5,000. It's just so happens though, like Emily, you do a lot of Seattle, and I think, you know, if you have properties there, they're going to be at much higher price points. So even adding or subtracting the 5,000 to make them apples to apples, give or take bedrooms, bathrooms, things like that. It's really the comps that are going to make the difference there. Your goal is to just make them to apples, and it doesn't make it more expensive to have a square box in Seattle as it does in Tacoma, right? It's still, the competition is what changes the price, and the location is what changes the price of that comp. But the square box is still a bedroom.
Okay.
And then you're going to be adjusting for square footage too. So if the question is, but I have way bigger bedrooms in this place and I don't have them in this place, we're also going to have the square footage adjustment in this. Mm-hmm. Does that answer that?
Yeah, I think so. Thanks, Donna.
Okay. Anybody else have some? These are a lot of great questions, and they're going to come up maybe with your clients too. So very rarely do we have questions actually with our clients about this, but let's be prepared by being able to answer those questions. I love these questions. So fireplaces, if the house has 3 fireplaces, you know, you're probably looking at more the 2,500 range for a fireplace, but they'll give it value for having 2, 3 fireplaces or having no fireplace compared to the neighbors. Age, we try to look within 10 years plus or minus. So if you're really struggling to find comps, my gosh, do a 20-year spread between your year or something like that, plus and minus. But if you've got tons, if you've got, you know, 99 comps that you got to try to dig through, find stuff as close to it as possible. You can narrow it down and we'll go through that. Date sold, they're always going to look within 180 days, which is that 6 months that you were mentioning, Brenda. But if they have to go further, so for instance, if we change a market and there's just not anything, or it's so rural they can't really find anything, they have to write a report on why they have to go out further. In rural, you know, communities, they'll probably just go out in miles as opposed to days, because it's really hard to comp out stuff that's over 6 months old when we're really moving and shaking, right? So it just doesn't have the same value. A lot of times we're going up 10, 15, 20, $40,000 on our offers. And then, you know, in 1 month, the value of our whole neighborhood has gone up $10,000 or $15,000. So it's worth looking more recent than 6 months. If we change markets, though, it's very normal to have stuff on the market for 30, 60, or 90 days. So easy to make sure that we have to go out further for those kinds of things. How far away? Within 2 miles, unless it's in a rural setting. So in the country, I'm in Enumclaw. We all have big 3 to 5 acre parcels of land. You can't really look within 2 miles. It doesn't make sense, right? We need some comps further out, and they'll have to write a report for that, but it's pretty easy for them to do that to explain it. And then most importantly is style. You're never going to have a rambler that's compared with a split level or things like that. So if you are, for instance, marketing, getting ready to price out one, and this comes up with clients all the time. They're like, but no, look at this house. It sold for, you know, $70,000 more, and it's not even the same kind of house. We have to just make them really aware that an appraiser's only going to use like kind. The only anomalies that you can find on that is sometimes you'll find on 1 bedrooms with a basement. They might look at 1 bedrooms with a basement for that, and or 1.5. So where people have used an attic or something like that, sometimes they'll use those to compare to 1-stories. Does that make sense to everybody?
Yes, I have another question though.
Okay.
What is a basement worth? I'm always getting stumped on this. Like,
great questions for it. I got great answers for that. In fact, I've got some examples. I got a lot of calls this week from people wondering the same thing, doing, for instance, West Seattle or something like that. They've got a basement and they just don't know how to explain it to their clients. So we'll spend some time. Let's go through that now, actually. Here's how I would present it to my clients. And I would just say, hey, let me give you an example. In this example, my clients have a fully finished basement, but it's not necessarily on their tax records as finished. And maybe there's no walkout. There's no door that walks out there. So it's finished. It's a downstairs space. In that case, I would just let them know, hey, while you did finish this basement, it's got a lot of beautiful work to it, and we're going to try to roll it into the full square footage of the house. Please understand a couple of different things. One is that an appraiser, in order to count unfinished or finished square feet that's not permitted and finished via the county, they actually have to find other comps that have unpermitted finished square footage. Does that make sense? So they can't just use, hey, that's a comp. So either they're not going to allow it to have the full value, or they're going to find comps for that, or they're going to give half value. In most cases, what they do is that they do two different pricing codes there. So that let's say the main floor is 1,000 square feet. They're going to make that apples to apples to the neighbors. And then for that finished square footage on the bottom floor, say it's 600 square feet, they're going to give it half value. So in King County, for instance, it's 45 bucks a square foot. They're going to do 20 bucks a square foot for the finished square foot in the basement. Sometimes they will give it none, especially if it doesn't have a walkout, like a door to walk out, if it's just a finished basement. And so I can actually, let's take a look here. I'm going to show you this one that we did in West Seattle. Oh, just kidding. Let's not show it to you. Hold on. Oh, no screen. Let's go to the edit button. So this is in Cloud CMA. I just threw this one together for someone who had some questions on me on the same thing. And we actually just, our wonderful Eva from our office, who gives us all our checks every month when we sell houses, she ended up with a low appraisal because they did a terrible appraisal on her house. We did the same thing with theirs and we won. It was great. We turned this in. So this gives you kind of an idea. This house, is one of the comps for it. And what they're going to do is they're going to have the finished square foot. This is the difference between themselves and the neighbor. And then they also, this house did not have a basement at all. So it has this unfinished square footage that we were able to add some extra value on there, but more at 20 bucks a square foot. So you adjust the finished square footage and then you can add some extra value on there for the unfinished. Does that make sense? We can walk through one too.
Yeah, sorry, I'm confused.
Okay, no, let's take a look at it. So my comp here was 1190 square feet. And this house right here, their competition is I'm always going to use a calculator, so bear with me. I'm going to also type right in the calculator. So the difference between this house right here, it's just a one-story. There's no basement, you can see, and this is their competition. My house is a little bit bigger at 1190 square feet, and their house is 1010. So I've got 180 square foot difference between their main floor. So like 8,100, right? Then we've also got a basement. Let's just say the basement on my house is 600 square feet times, we'll say 20 bucks. Then I also get another $12,000 worth of credit for that. Because this house doesn't have it, but my house has a finished basement. It's not, it's finished, and there's other criteria there too. What if it's finished, but they can't get in and out of a window safely, right? An appraiser's not going to give that a bedroom space, not going to turn it into a bedroom, but it's still finished. So we do want to add some value for that. And I always tell them we're going to go, I don't like surprises in real estate. So we're absolutely going to price it with the value being in that finished square footage. You put a lot of work and time and it looks great, but you need to know that some appraisers may or may not. So that way, if it comes up, they're like, well, you warned me. You warned me that may happen. Thank you for trying to get the most value for my house, right?
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
So if you have to use like kind properties and everything, how come, since yours had a basement, you were able to use that house as a comp? Was it because yours was unfinished?
One bedrooms with basements, and then one bedrooms, well, like 1.5 stories can sometimes be used as comps if that's what's in the neighborhood, you know what I mean? They'll use those one bedrooms. So I wouldn't use a 2-story, for instance, which is like a big 2-story house, but I could use a 1-bedroom with a basement.
Okay.
Yeah. Same with a 2-bedroom. If you had some 2-bedroom competition, but in the neighborhood, they also had a 2-bedroom with a basement, you can use that as well. But I think the 1 story, the 2 story, the split level is the most important part there. All right, so let's go back here.
And I might be getting nitpicky, but I'm wondering, you know how ramblers are like pretty hot commodity? Sometimes they're hard to find, hard to comp. You have to sometimes go out like, pretty far. I was just wondering if you're trying to, if you can't find like a like kind property for a rambler, is there like a standard kind of value that you might add just based on the fact that there's more roof? I mean, when we're kind of talking about bedrooms and stuff, sounds like it's based on the build cost. So I just wondered, is there like a, I guess it's going to depend on square footage too. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, so you're gonna, I mean, if you have to go way out on ramblers, they shouldn't be that hard to find in the most part. But if, like, for instance, you had to go 3 miles out to find a rambler, just kind of depending on where you're at, you're still gonna want to find ramblers because the appraiser is still gonna do the same process. He's still gonna only find ramblers. So if you have to maybe expand out in time or when it was last sold or all those things, they're still going to focus more on the like kinds than they are on, they're not going to submit a 2-story house with a one. I just sold one in Roy and I just got the appraisal for it, and it came in exactly where I expected that it would. But at the same time, I was like, oh, the lady said, oh, you were wrong. They did 2 stories on there. And I was like, oh my gosh, right? Let me check it out. So we got the appraisal on there. It was a 1.5 story. So same thing where they maybe got a loft or they've used an attic space. It's really not a true 2 story, but they've converted some attic space in most cases to be a 2, it's like a 2 story, but it's considered a 1.5. So the 1-to-1 is probably the most important part, but you can be creative and look for 1 stories with basements or 1.5 stories. Have you found any, like for instance, Seattle, that you're not able to find ramblers in the area?
There was this like giant place I was comping out in Des Moines, like one of the biggest ramblers I'd seen, and I just couldn't find anything. So we ended up going like 5 miles out, and I'm like, it's a completely different neighborhood.
Read more, like, was it considered in a luxury neighborhood, or I mean, there's a lot of ramblers in Des Moines. So was it more like it was so big compared to everything else that you were trying to look for something incomparable to that, or?
Yeah, it was a pretty enormous rambler. And so,
okay. So I would probably, in that case, I would always go ahead and get the largest ramblers I can find that are within the 2 miles, and then just comp out for the side. So for instance, if really you've got the maximum of 2,000 square foot, and this one is 3,300. I mean, by the time you're going to add some 258 in there. Mm-hmm.
That's good. Okay, cool. Thanks.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So if you are not finding comps and you have to go farther out, maybe in time, how do you estimate how much more to add for that time that you are going back? Like if you have to go maybe a year, a house that sold a year cannot compare to a house that is going into the market now.
Have you found any that you haven't been able to find and you had to go back a year?
Not really. I mean, I was able to find up to, well, recently, but I was just coming up with that idea. Like, how would you estimate? How would you add value?
Appraiser's probably not going to do that. It's very unlikely that we're going to have to go back there. But one of the examples, and I'll speak into this in a much deeper level later, is condos. They do stuff like that in condos, and they make no adjustment at all. Super frustrating. So for instance, in most houses, you're going to be able to find comps within the past 6 months. If they have to go out a little bit further, they'll explain it, but that's because the market has come to a screeching stop. So it's going to be pretty accurate, right? Mm-hmm. If we have to find stuff, if we can't find comps, that means that nothing's really selling. And then we are really stopped, and it's probably going to be pretty accurate to the price of 6 months ago or maybe less. So it's not really a matter of like, would the market have zoomed way past that point because we can't find a comp from that long ago. Does that make sense? Because really there's so many houses selling, we're going to be able to find comps.
And how do they adjust price? For example, here where I live, there is like a street. It's kind of like a private street, and they built some houses like behind the main houses on the street. So that road is only for access to their houses. How do they calculate the price on that? Like it's not like a regular neighborhood to put it that way. It's like a
Are they,
little road only to those houses, but
are they doing ADUs? Like additional dwelling units on their own property?
oh no,
that what-
their property sold to other people but
They're gonna comp those out to the houses in the neighborhood. They're just gonna be considered regular properties at that point. I mean, they're individual sales, so
okay.
new construction can really build the price point of an area up actually. So it sounds funny because you're really not going to comp out your 1950s house to a 2020 house, and at the same time, all of a sudden prices start adjusting to those higher new construction rates. So it is a bonus just because we see those new construction usually goes up about 5 to 10,000 every time they sell a house. So we do see those adjustments. I don't know specifically on what. Maybe you could show me if it's I'm not quite understanding on that community, and maybe we can follow up later and look at it because I don't know if I quite get what you're saying on there, but it sounds to me like it's just construction.
Yeah,
their own-
they build houses like that is the main road, and the houses in that neighborhood, the street of the neighborhood, but then there is one street that goes perpendicular to the back, kind of like to the area of the water, and the owner apparently had a big lot which he divided, but the only people that can get into that area is the people who purchase those lots. Like in a regular neighborhood, anyone can go into any street, but in that area is kind of like a street for those houses,
It's not going to make a difference on the appraisal though. Yeah.
Okay.
So, and ultimately that's probably what we're worried about is what is the good appraiser going to put up, here? How are they going
Probably
to
without the same value too, because it's a newer house anyway, so that's
and
already
they do
adding value. Like you said, I didn't think of that.
Yeah, they do the cost approach with that too. So they don't do it usually they do it on some new construction sales, but there's some different approaches that they do with new construction. So let's go ahead and if it's okay, and then maybe you and I can follow up if you have more questions. I'd love to talk to you
That's
about
okay.
it and take a look at it. So I want to talk about some idiosyncrasies because as we were mentioning, the appraisers are individuals, right? And so some of these formulas that I just shared with you on Just the Stats, you may pull all of your buyers and notice that, gosh, that appraiser did it very different than that. That's okay. Mostly they're just doing those same numbers that I shared with you. That's each person, there is no actual rule for appraisals, like how they do it, but most of them do it in the same formulas. But they're individuals. They get to decide how they want to do it. So residential lots or acreage, we talked about that a little bit. If you are just doing just land, I have some more feedback for that, maybe at a different date. But view, it really is up to the appraiser to determine the value of it. So when you talk to your clients, you want to explain that to them. Oh, this is a beautiful view. I really love it. I love the view of the sound. We're going to give it some value, as you know it has value, but it's really up to the appraiser to determine what kind of value it has. So it's a sweeping view. It's gorgeous view of the water. I'm going to do $25,000 worth of value or something like that. Where maybe you have somebody who has a beautiful view of the mountains. That's probably maybe $10,000 if it's just the whole backyard. And then last, we have people with partial views that are like, but it's a view house. I can see it from the upper, if I stand on my toilet in my master bath. And those just really don't have the same kind of view. So if it's a partial view, they don't have the same value. But you do want to give it some value. It is important to recognize that with people and just say. So does anyone have any questions on view, on maybe something that they've approached recently or that they were worried about? Nope. Okay, so just explain to your clients, and this is really a big part of your job, is just saying, here's what to expect from this. We're going to give it as much value as we possibly can. And at the same time, we don't know with the appraiser how they're going to feel about the value. Maybe it's covered up for the day. Maybe they can't even see the mountain. So we're going to get it in our shots to make sure that they know or whatever. But we're going to work on getting the maximum value for that. We can't determine what the appraiser is going to say the value is for that house because there is no mathematic formula for that. Updates. This is a fun one. How many times have you gone to a client's house and they're like, oh, it's beautiful, it's just gorgeous, I totally remodeled it, and it's like lime green or pea green from 1975? Has that ever happened to anyone? Or that's just they say it's totally updated and it's still like 1985 even, right? So it's really important for them to know a couple of things here, and one is that updates need to actually be within the last 5 years. They are not gathering receipts. An appraiser is not saying, well, prove to me it's in the last 5 years. It just really has to look more current, right? So you can tell with people it's an old oak cabinets or it's some of the newer style cabinets or whatever, that's going to have some value. Now, we also need to know that an appraiser, unless it's a luxury house, is not going to give generally more than $25,000 worth of credit for upgrades. Sometimes we see 35 if it's a really extensive upgrade on a house. But most of your clients, it may have cost them $50,000 to upgrade their house. So they want all of that value, and it's not going to show up on the appraisal. So it's really important, like even if you're walking through their house and just saying, hey, the appraiser's probably not going to give you more than $25,000 worth of value. So let's not replace all the windows with a $75,000 worth of windows. Let's go ahead and keep the windows at a really moderate price point, right? Okay, let's get good windows and replace the ones that need to be replaced, but you really don't want to, this came up with Jen, I think, in one of my classes, that her client was furious because they bought the best windows in the business and they spent $75,000 and they wanted to get it all on their price. Well, it's not going to happen. You have to have windows and you have to have functioning windows in the house, but you don't necessarily get an upgraded price for buying expensive windows, right? Super important to keep that in mind with people, and it helps them kind of determine what they're going to do with their house and how they're going to do it. So focus on the master bath, focus on the kitchen or whatever, but painting and nice floor, but really, a lot of times they're not going to get their return on their money if they try to do luxury items for it. Does that make sense? Does anybody have questions on upgrades? Nope. Okay. So we talked about below grade square footage and split levels. Split levels are one of those ones that Emily, you had asked about, like the basement or things like that. This comes up all the time in split levels. So split levels are going to be a really big thing to, as soon as you see it, you need to talk with your clients about it. If some split levels they have a very long staircase in the front, and then they're below their square footage, that's the bottom floor, is actually above the grade. So meaning it's above the ground. Below grade is where part of that floor is below the ground, if that makes sense. You've seen those, right? Where you walk downstairs and half of it's under the ground and your window's just kind of above the ground there. Those ones often, they can be completely finished or partially finished or unfinished. And a lot of times they'll give them half credit or no credit at all for below grade square footage. Again, when you list your house, you're probably going to list it with the best possible price that you can, in hopes that appraiser is going to get to that. So you're going to comp it out really, really close to that full credit for that finished square footage down there. But you're going to tell your clients, hey, they really don't always give you the full credit for below grade square footage. So I just needed to warn you about this. And so it's usually about half credit. Sometimes they give no credit at all. And it's very sad. Does anyone have to add that happen to them on split levels? Not yet. Waterfront, I'm just going to skip past that point. You guys, there's so many different things to keep in mind with waterfront properties. Is it high bank, low bank, no bank? Is how much footage is there of waterfront? Is there a dock? Is there a deck? Lifts, things like that. And, depending on what kind of waterfront it is it the sound or a lake? So there's a lot of things in there. I'd probably just get with another pro and either list it together or just, break into their mind for a little bit and see if you can figure that out. And the last thing on anomaly here is the luxury square footage. It's $75 a square foot. So it's very different from, the 45 or the $29 a square foot. And it really has to be in a luxury neighborhood with luxury, you know, things in it, big, you know, the gorgeous appliances, fridges, things like that.
You said
Okay.
$75 square foot?
$75 a square foot.
Thank you.
I will, you can actually reach out to Goldie too and get this whole slideshow if you want it. So if you're struggling going through and writing everything, we can absolutely get you the whole slideshow. Lindsay, how you doing over there? I see you. Good. All right, so I'm just going to check in. Does anyone need to ask any questions about what we're doing here? We'll talk about condos next.
I have a quick question.
Okay.
So I'm working with an investor and who flips houses. So, I feel like this is going to be super helpful because I'll be able to get like stats, and she's a very high C. So this is all good stuff.
Yes.
But you were saying that they don't, I don't know if I'm going to ask this question clearly or not. The adjustments for upgrades, like do you have a list of like how they'll adjust, or does that kind of depend on the appraiser?
They really just only give about $25,000. So, you know, they don't have a list, and none of them have a list, right? So if it's like, it's pretty just reasonable stuff. So let me give you an example for, I get this question actually for investors all the time, but like, how does that make sense? They just dumped $75,000 into the house. Well, yeah, because they hopefully bought it for a lot less, right? So if for instance, all they did was paint and floor, and maybe some nice counters, stuff like that in there, and then the exterior is pretty much left the same or something like that, they'll probably give them $15,000 worth of credit, right? Paint, floor, counters. Or, you know, carpet and whatever. But if it's a full remodel, you might even see, like, if it's from the ground up and it's just every single detail on there, you might see something like $35,000, but I've never seen more than that on an appraisal. And truthfully, you know, they're hopefully buying it at less than 70% of the value for when it's all done. So that's where they're going to see that come back up. Because of course they're going to spend more. They may not give them, but the new market that they're going to be able to move in for different comps is what's going to make the difference for them.
Okay. Thank you. That's really helpful. Appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely.
I've got another question. Sorry. I've been waiting a year for this class. So if you have a property and it's basically a gut, what do you, and there's nothing around, like you could find the exact same thing, but everything's done. Let's say a really nice neighborhood view. What do you deduct? Like it's maybe a couple 2,400 square feet, something 26, like a couple 100,000, I'm thinking, to do everything for, I don't know. I have no idea.
Oh, so if you're like looking at something that you're like, this is going to be a flip, right? Or something like that.
Strictly sold to an investor.
Yeah, it should really be at 70% or less of the value of the what it's going to look like there. And that's just from my own experience. I do a lot of my own repair work. I'm a house hoarder, so I don't ever sell anything. I just keep it and then, you know, rent it. But you know, any investor should be at 70% or less of the value. Very difficult in this market to do. You know, there's a million investors out there. There's a ton of people from Amazon or young. There's a lot of young people that are just buying houses now and flipping them and making money off of them. And it's very much the thing for the last couple of years. So it's a little harder to find great deals like that. But it should always be 70% or less, because you really can't make a ton of money on a flip. Even now, I honestly, things are priced so high, and what you're going to get for it, it's really hard to make money. And maybe I think about money a little differently, but if I'm going to make $15,000 for 3 months worth of work, I feel like I could drive for Uber at that price. So, you know, I have lots of flip spreadsheets too. If anyone wants to look at them, I can easily send them to you. I am an Excel spreadsheet nut, so if I have a spreadsheet for probably everything.
Thank you.
I have
anybody else?
Yes. So if there is a bathroom and one is updated and the other one is not updated, is there a credit on that?
Tell me what the rest of the house looks like.
Like assuming the rest of the house looks about the same, but only like
Updated,
one
not
has 2
updated.
bathrooms, the other one has 2, one has them updated, but the other one doesn't.
I guess my question is, if one's an updated bathroom and one's not an updated bathroom, is the rest of the house updated? Like recently?
Yes.
Okay, so in that case, you do see it all the time, right? Like a half bath downstairs that's never been updated or something like that. But you can generally look at the house and say, gosh, they have recently painted, replaced the floors, did the main bathroom. It's gorgeous and brand new. They easily should get, $15,000, $20,000 worth of credit, something like that. So there's not a number for this, but it's just kind of basic thinking about this. You guys, you did a lot of stuff. There's a couple things left undone. I still think there's $20,000 worth of value on your home for updates there.
All right, thank you.
I hope that helps. I do realize that it's more of like what does your gut tell you? But it will work, because as you look at your comps in the same light, you're going to be like, okay, I've got 5 comps. I can see that this comp is less updated than that one. So I'm going to give a little bit less value for my, for this,
Okay.
if that makes sense. You're really only be working with 5 different homes, 6 different homes on your comps. And if you use kind of the same formula, it's still going to work out. It's going to come out in the wash, right?
Okay.
And we'll go through this and I'll kind of show you a little bit. So I'm going to stop here for condos. Condos are very unique properties. And so when I do a market valuation for them, I really try to stick within that same community. And if you don't see things that are actually comps that have sold within that same community within the last 6 months, then you can be wary of the fact that the appraiser is going to have the same problem. I have had appraisers go back as far as 2 years on condos just to stay within the same community and not give it any value adjustment for the change that happened in the last 2 years. Ouch, right? So, meaning, they found me a comp that sold 2 years ago and it was 185 and everything's selling for 285 now, but they used that as one of the comps and made no adjustment. That's scary. So I would do 2 things. If you can't find great comps in there, I would also still look without the community. Like if I'm looking at condos in Des Moines, for instance, I found maybe it's a smaller community. I only found 3 comps in there. I would still go ahead and for the tax records, look what sold most recently. So I know, but also I would use, condos that are like kind in the Des Moines community and know that I may have to fight that appraisal. I'm still going to try to get the maximum from that house. I'm not going to try to use old comps, if that makes sense, when I list it. But again, I have this opportunity to tell my clients, here's what to expect. Here's what we do and don't know. And here's how we're going to try to maximize the profit for your house. Most condos only actually qualify for cash or conventional loans. Can anyone tell me how you find that for condos, like if you're working with a buyer or a seller?
There's the FHA website.
Yep, and VA too.
Mm-hmm.
So I put them on here because a lot of times you see listings all the time that list both conventional FHA, VA on their condos, and they don't qualify at all. And it shouldn't surprise you anymore, but it is surprising to me that most agents have no idea. So when I list a condo, for instance, without FHA financing, I get calls all the time. Well, you should just take our loan. It doesn't work that way. FHA has special regulations. The condo associations have to pay fees and they have to keep within those regulations every year. And you cannot get an FHA loan if it's not FHA approved. So you'll want to take a look at those condos. If you're working with a buyer, feel free to check out each condo too before you waste your time looking at it, right? Because an agent will have said conventional and FHA, and maybe it doesn't qualify at all. So it's pretty easy to look up and well worth saving the drive out there if it doesn't qualify. Also, if you're a listing agent, you have a little bit of legal liability to make sure you're putting accurate information in there. So make sure before you list a condo, make sure it is VA or FHA approved before you list that as a potential lending term. Okay, So here's what an appraisal looks like. This is actually a recent one of a house I just bought in November. So it's pretty consistent. This house, we won't go dive into this house too much, but it's pretty gross. I bought it for $285. They found the price to be $341, which is great. But it's not, there's so much fur coming out of the ducts that it kind of flutters when you look at the air ducts down below. It's really gross. But it'll be a great rental, right? Lots of work there. So this gives you an example though. So when I look at these, I'm starting to look at things like right here on the living square footage, my house is listed as 1176, if you can see. And then this comp was listed at 1280. And you can see the difference there. So it'll be a little different than 45 bucks a square foot, but that's okay. So if I did 1280 minus 1176, this is how I find the numbers. I'm showing you how I find it off of your own, okay? It's 104 square feet difference, and they gave minus 5,000. So they did 48 bucks a square foot there for their valuation. That is in King County too. So it's a little different than the 45, and we'll keep looking at it. If I don't see any difference in the next 3 or 4 comps coming or appraisals coming up, like for instance, this one says 48 bucks a square foot. But what if the next 4 or 5 appraisals that I look at still say 45? I'm not going to really switch my class around, right? Because each individual appraiser is different. However, if I start seeing a consistent change over the next 3 or 4 appraisals, then I'll be teaching the class a little different, and I'll let everybody know it's 48 bucks a square foot or something, right? Does that make sense on how I find that information? Awesome. So let's work on building a market valuation in Cloud CMA. Does everybody, if you're new, have you logged into Cloud CMA? Is there people that have not logged in?
I am not.
Okay. It is free with our office, which is great. But if you haven't logged in, I believe you're going to probably be talking to Carmen or somebody like that and getting your login information. It's a really great system to be able to build those. And Command, I think, is going to have some new stuff coming up, but it's just not, we're not working in that yet. So I'm looking forward to the new systems for market valuations, but in the meantime, we're going to choose Cloud CMA, and it's a great platform. Anybody use it consistently? Sean, you do? Nancy, you do? Yeah, Linda, you do. Okay. So if you haven't logged in and you don't have your login, you can just follow in on the screen. If you do, feel free to start to log into Cloud CMA, because let's just work on one together. I think sometimes hands-on for this is a lot more helpful than Anna talking for 2 hours. Okay, I'm gonna make your pictures go away there. So we'll go to that. I'm all logged in on my screens, hopefully. Who knows at this point, an hour later, could be, could not be. So first I start in the MLS like everybody else is doing, right? I'm gonna start by, I'm gonna just do one of the properties that I have here in Enumclaw. Rental properties, if you don't know, I'll do another class on investing and retiring really fast to rental properties if you want to, but that's not at this class. This is the area code for Enumclaw. We have King County. You can tell this is old because it doesn't have the state on there at this point. And then I have 66 matches still. Well, that's too many for me to try to dig through. So I'm going to break it down to active, pending inspection, pending, and sold. Now, an appraiser is only going to use sold for the most part for their comps, but you will see some pendings if they can get a hold of the agent and find out how much it was selling for. So I actually just click on all of those. Why? Because I'm nosy. I want to know what's going on in the market. It just helps me to be like, oh, there's 0 actives. I can already tell you what's going on, right? Like it's moving along and nobody can hold on to them. Pending inspections, again, because I'm just kind of nosy and I want to know, I just want to get a feel for it as I start this. So additional fields, this is a Rambler that I have. So we'll do one story. And then that should leave me, see how I've got 14 matches here? That's a pretty good number for me to try to dig through. So we've got the map, the area, that's the street address. I can narrow it down if I want to even further. Like if I'm only going to need 6 solds anyways, right? I don't want more than 20, 25 or so to have to dig through. But this has 11 matches. And we can see that there is 3 active, 1 pending, 2 pending, or 1 pending inspection, 2 pending, and there's 5 solds there. So now I will dig through these. So at this point, I will probably look through these solds and just get a really good idea. Like, are these decent comps? Do I need to find more? You know, like what if they're, you know, what if they just look like, obviously like one is an investment property or something like that, and it's just garbage. And I know that mine's remodeled. So I'm going to try to look for more or less at this point. All right. So here's my second tip of the day. I am not a patient person. I also feel like I have a memory like a goldfish. So trying to go back and forth and remember MLS numbers is insane. I will be like 163, what is that? You know, so instead of trying to remember all the MLS numbers, I just click on the CMA button, right? I just quickly click pages, all the pages and comparables. I don't care. I'm not even going to use that report. And then I open that report, and then at the second part of that report, you can just go down to these numbers right before here and copy and paste them and drop them into Cloud CMA. So no more trying to remember each individual MLS number over and over and going back and forth. Does that help anybody? Does it make sense?
So much. So much.
Yes.
Yeah, that might be the single best thing I've learned today. I always transpose the numbers in Cloud CMA. I've got one like down in Clark County. I'm like, oh my God, then you got to find it. Like, that's awesome.
I cannot remember those numbers either. I just like, I just can't do it. I cannot remember past 3 numbers apparently. I don't know. It's so weird. But anyways, yeah, so you can just drop it right here in the Cloud CMA. Obviously, there's 2 things on Cloud CMA. One is do not let it fetch its own listings. It will fetch the most garbage listings you've ever seen. You know, you're like, I've got a little Rambler and it does $1 million house on, you know, the Sound in Olympia. And it's just weird. So make sure you do pick your own ones. One last little teeny thing with Cloud CMA is if it won't let you in, it's probably because you updated your MLS number and did not update it in Cloud CMA. So don't get panicked when you can't log into Cloud CMA because you updated your MLS number or password, right? And you can change that here in the account settings. I say that because I've also panicked many, many times when I updated my password and I couldn't get in. So we're going to drop those all in. It's going to load them like this, right?
I have a question.
Yes.
When I load them or when I press enter, it gives me a lot of other properties that I didn't have there in the MLS listing.
Did you add only your own into there or did you say fetch listings?
No, I did add them right there on the page that you said to add the MLS numbers.
Okay, so right here.
But then when I click enter, it gives me a lot of more properties, not just those.
I don't have an answer for that, but maybe we can look at it through Zoom sometime and maybe figure out. I've never had that happen to me. Maybe there's something that we'll be able to see if you do it live in front of me or something like that, but I can say, oh yeah, easy answer.
Hey, Anna, there's on the MLS, there's a function where you can send your selected listings directly to Cloud CMA. Do you recommend doing that?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I've never seen it before. Tell me about
right
it.
there. See at the bottom next to your schedule showing to the right.
Cloud CMA. Oh, that's true.
Cloud CMA. Stop it. What?
Yeah, if you select that listing and click Cloud CMA, it will open a new CMA for you.
That's amazing. I have not paid attention to that. And whenever they change that, I have no idea, but I love it.
Yeah,
So,
it's pretty recent. Yeah.
Thank you.
Mhm.
So even easier. I no longer have like the best tip of the day. You now do. That's good.
No more copy paste.
Hey,
Yeah,
I
no
missed where you copy and pasted. Could you go over that? Sorry, I did have to step away for a moment.
That's okay. Let's go back really quick. Hold on. It's really hard to get into my presentation. So we'll go back here. So when you're at the MLS, if you don't click on the button that says Cloud CMA, you would just create a regular CMA and you go to like the second page or whatever page just has all those numbers listed down there and just copy paste those. So let's just say, for instance, what if you did hit the Cloud CMA button and you have 6 or 7 listings and you're like, you know what, now that I'm going through this, I would like a couple more. You could copy paste still off of this same way. I'm gonna have to change my slideshow. I'm super excited about it though, I'll be honest. All right, so these are the comps that we pulled up for that particular one. And the blue is always your home, you know, your particular home. The greens are the active still, yellows are pending, and red sold. So it gets kind of an idea. I probably would put maybe 1 pending and you know, the 5 or 6 solds in this. Honestly, at this point, I probably wouldn't do a bunch of pending and I wouldn't do any active. Not on my market valuation because I really don't want to adjust all of those out. I will show you another report that I do with that when I'm presenting it to people though, because I think it's really helpful. So I want to show you how to adjust each one, but I think it would be really fun instead of going through it this way to just do it together. So with somebody, let's go ahead and just do one together instead of me showing you. Well, I'll show you, but do it together. All right, so I went ahead and put Enumclaw again, you guys, and within 2 miles of that house, we'll say the square footage is 1,000 to 2,000 because it's about 1,500 exactly, and it just has a regular residential lot. So I don't really want any of the bigger acreage properties to have to zoom through. It's a 1963 house, so I just put 1950 through 1975 because there's a lot of 1920s houses in Enumclaw too that I don't really want to have my competition unless I needed more. And since I already did this earlier today, I know that there's not a ton, but let's take a look. Let's see what we come up with. An old URL, that's fun. Do it again. Or if somebody else has a different comp, we can do it there too. I'm happy to do either one. One that they're working on, maybe you need help with. We can maybe do that afterwards. So in this one, again, let's stick with, there's 12 matches. Actually, let's just take a look at the matches as they are. So there's nothing active. We know that that's probably going to be, this is a 1,320 square foot house. And I'm going to guess that's 1927, and it is. So it's older. This is going to be probably a bad comp because it's much bigger, right? It's 2,410 square feet. The difference between a 2,400 square foot house and a 1,500 square foot house is quite different in how they lay it out. So no, this one is probably older as well, and it's 1,000 square feet, so it seems smaller. This is 1916. That's huge. 3,400 square feet. All of a sudden we have this one, it's pretty similar, right? So 1,500 square feet, but it has 5 bedrooms. Not sure how I feel about that. So we'll click on it, but we'll just keep going, right? This one is 1,700 square feet. So bigger. I'm just gonna go backwards, hold on. I think it's more fun to go this way sometimes. 1900 square feet, this is probably an older house, it's 1900s house. This one seems okay, 3-bedroom, it is bigger. Obviously, we like the higher price point. If you can start, sometimes I start from the back and go forward. Like, what's the highest I can get for my comps? Why not? If I'm going to make an appraiser try to stretch the price as high as they can, let's try to start from the top, right? As long as it's similar. So I'm going to click on that one. This one is also 1,800 square feet, 3-bedroom, 1.5 bath. Mine is 1.5. So 3-bedroom, 1.5 bath. It's 1,500 square feet with a 1-car garage. Click on that.
Older.
Definitely older. 1913.
Solid.
1920s. Okay. I have 4 so far. So let's just work on the 4. How's that? All right, we're going to extend this to Cloud CMA the new way. Thanks, Troy. Let's see. I wonder if you have to have Cloud CMA already open. Probably, yes. Have you tried that?
I don't think you do. I think once you've logged in, it just sort of remembers.
Okay, well, there you go. It's really neat. So in this case, take a look at this. I told you that it was 1,500 square feet, 3-bedroom, and a 1.5 bath. I think that's going to be pretty important, you know, because the house was recorded at 1,500 or 1,300 square feet, 2x1, which means that nothing has changed on the taxes. I'm still going to go ahead and do my market valuation with what I do know about the house, but have complete understanding that when you're talking to a client, you're going to be like, okay, you told me it was a little bit bigger, or we have some additional square footage here. It's a little different than the tax records, and the appraiser is going to look at the tax records. So let's talk about maybe some things that could happen there.
Quick question. When you typed in that address, I missed it. Did it automatically populate the square footage in beds and baths based on tax
it generates
records?
the tax data.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thanks.
Yep. I always have that up too, because sometimes I want to see if there's some finished square footage. You know, a lot of older houses, they'll have maybe like a washer dryer area in the basement, and they consider that a finished square footage in the tax data. It doesn't look any different than the rest of the basement. You know, maybe it's unfinished overall, or it is finished overall. But we need to know what the government basically says about it at that point.
Hi, Anna.
Hi.
I just wanted to pop in to everybody. Hi. I went ahead and put in the Cloud CMA link. We had run into trouble with having a different link, and we just found out we had a new one. So I wanted to pop it in the chat box for you guys and crash the party for a second. So hi, I hope you guys are having a great class.
Thanks, Auntie Carmi.
Okay, love you guys. See ya.
So here's where we do the fetch listing after we do have these in there. They do need commas, or they do need to be like below each other. And you can't crunch them all together. Maybe that's the problem that it was having. But we'll take a look if there's individual problems on that. And then we're going to hit the fetch listings. So I'm going to let other people kind of interject here based on what we know. I can easily give you the numbers on, you know, if it would load. I do have a direct link, but you wouldn't know that apparently. There we go. So I do have them all in my head. So if you need help, let me know. But basically, let's start with this. What are some things that we need to adjust? We know that ours is 1,500 square feet. It's a 3-bedroom, 1.5 bath. It's got a 1-car garage, and it's been completely remodeled. So it's got new floors, new quartz counters throughout the whole house, new paint, things like that, new roof, new siding.
Adjust bathroom square feet, possibly year.
Yeah, let's flip through some of these. You can see like this, for instance, it looks nice in the pictures, but it really is the original cabinets and some old tile counters.
Looks like it.
If I'm clicking too fast, if it's like somebody's husband flipping through the remote on TV, just let me know. I am bad at that. It is definitely bigger. They've got this interesting saloon door going into their to their dining room, huh?
So you're going to adjust the footage to start.
Yeah, let's do that. So square footage is going to make some of the biggest difference in all of them. So if mine is 1,500 square feet and theirs is 1,800, I want to work through the biggest important part is, do we add or subtract? So we're going to say 1,880 for theirs. Oh my gosh, it's under all your faces. I can't see it. Hold on. Right, and times 45, we know that part, right? But theirs is bigger and I want to make it like mine. So I'm actually going to deduct that square footage from theirs, if that makes sense, because I need to make it to be exactly like mine. So negative 17, see, I can't even remember that number, 100. Okay. And then they have a half bath that's bigger. I have a half bath and they have a full bath there. So we'll say bathroom, negative 2,500, right?
And you're deducting that off of their value, off of their
value, because their value is based on having more bathrooms than me and a bigger square footage, if that makes sense. So to make it like mine, I'm going to deduct, add or subtract to, depending on if I have something better, I'll add onto theirs. If I don't have as good as theirs, I'll be subtracting from theirs.
Okay. What if it was like 2 half baths?
2 half baths, I would just do the 5,000 or whatever.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. And I do consciously think about that. So if it's like, what if they add all together and something, but for the most part, you can just use it, what if they have 2 3/4 baths, for instance, and it's like considered 1.5, but would you take away? No, you would just add, minus the 5,000 or whatever from there.
Did you only
and then a garage, right? So that's always a big chunk. Garages. They've got a 2-car garage. I've got a 1-car garage. So I'm gonna say minus 10,000. Our price is going down. I mean, I don't like it because it's my asset, but it is.
Then you need to do your upgrade.
And then I need to do my upgrade. So let's take a look at this. And I would love a couple of opinions on what they think. Mine is totally upgraded. Everything in it is upgraded. This is a nice house, but it looks fairly original. Maybe the siding's been painted. I would guess that the roof looks like it's metal.
Probably had some new garage doors.
Sure. Yeah, exactly. And nothing's in bad shape. It just doesn't look brand new, right?
No, it's not
New
professional.
flooring in here. So if you were going to make an adjustment for upgrades, give me some ideas of what you think it would be.
10,000.
I was going to say 25 to 30.
I was going to say 20.
Yeah, I think I wouldn't probably just do 10,000 because I think really the only thing upgraded in this house is maybe this massive
Is that room right there?
And this, yep, exactly. It's not really upgraded. So I think that you'd probably say, if an appraiser actually walked into it, he'd say it's nice, but it's really not upgraded. Let's just do 20. We would say the value for our upgrades are $20,000. Maybe give it 5 for whatever little things we do or don't know about that they did on their own, right?
Would that 20,000 go back onto their price or towards yours?
It would go back up on theirs because I'm going to make theirs like mine, if that makes sense. So mine has the upgrades, theirs doesn't. So I'm going to add the value to try to make theirs like mine.
Okay.
But I took away stuff because, like, for instance, our next one is AC. They have AC. I do not have AC. They do not have a heat pump though. So, it's going to be minus 5,000. I don't have one. So I'm going to make my house, their house like mine, basically. It's hard to understand the pluses and the minuses. And that's why I really want to go through one of these with you. Like, am I adding or subtracting? Once you get it, but sometimes you're like, wait, which do I do? Do I add or subtract? So
for RV parking, Anna?
There is, unless it's covered RV parking, there's really no.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. it just makes it more marketable, but an appraiser is not going to add value for that, if that makes sense. And so I tell that to my clients, it absolutely will make it more marketable. People may want to pay more, it may be more competitive to get this property because people are looking for extra parking, but the appraiser is not going to give it extra dollar value for that.
Right. It might come in though with your lot size if there's a comparable.
Absolutely.
Lot size.
Right. Yeah.
So the dollar amount that you're using to make these adjustments is basically this list you gave us from what the appraisers use for the most part? Okay.
Yes. Yeah. So, you know, if I sell 3 to 4 houses a month and 2 are buyers, I usually get about 2 buyer appraisals. Really easy to ask them. Your buyers are happy to share the appraisal that they get with you. They don't have any issue with that. So to keep track of it, I generally try to look through as many appraisals as I can per month. You know, and in this market, I just hope I have all listings. I hope I don't have any updates for you soon. Because I don't want any buyers right now. I just want all listings. But it's really easy, especially in this market, you guys. I mean, if you're getting listings and people are saying, I already know what I want to list my house for. I just had one this week with my clients. They always want to lowball every offer, but they definitely want to set theirs at the highest price possible that doesn't even exist, right? So they have a cute little house in Renton. The top of their market is $580,000. We did the market valuation, and they were like, "Well, we really believe it should be $625,000." But the truth is that most people aren't going to fight over what an appraiser says. They actually might think that an appraiser is more qualified than you, to be really honest, right? And so when you start to use the same system, and we know it has to appraise, I rarely fight with clients over price. A lot of times we can get them more than what other people are listing at it because we can be so specific. But at the same time, if they're out of touch with their price point, it's really easy to show them a systematic way to do it. And we rarely ever have to fight about price, which takes a lot of burden off my shoulders. You know, when you come down to it and people are debating with you about price and you're trying to convince them that they're wrong, it's a terrible place to be because you're trying to represent them. So it's a much easier way to do that. Go ahead.
They think too that their 2,400 square foot house is going to sell for
the same.
3,400 square foot house. Yet.
I know.
That's
I know.
what they think. And
it happens all the time, and people go, but my neighbor sold for $485,000, and you're like, yeah, it makes a big difference. Let's show you how that's figured out, though, right? Because like all of us who have been looking at the same things, let's be really honest. I would bet that 99% of real estate brokers, we've been looking on the tax records, trying to figure out what it's kind of says the value of the house is. And we've been looking on Zillow, and we've been looking on Redfin, or we've been finding some ones in the neighborhood of not like kind, you know, but just ones in the neighborhood and trying to find a middle ground because we don't really have a formula. It's helpful to have a system that we're able to use. And it's not just you if you've been doing that. I did it for years, and just about everybody I knew was doing the same thing. So at least if we can find what it's generally about to appraise for, if it's going to be an amazing market, I'm going to say, hey, it looks like it should go for about 485. This is an awesome market. Let's go 490. Or it really looks like it's going to be a tough market. Let's not try to chase it down. Let's be the best value on the market and go 5,000 below that, or you know what I mean? But it's a starting point too. Like all things, we are really taking this and saying, now let's look at the market. We know what we can most likely appraise for. Where are we going to position your house in the market now that we know that, right? So we did, I think, most of the items that we can do on there. Is there anything else that would be important? The lot would be, but it's very similar lot. So I'm not too worried about that. The pool has no value. Nobody's pool has value. Don't let them convince you because they got a pool they installed in 1972 that it should be worth $50,000 because it's not.
I'm curious about that sunroom since it's unfinished square feet potentially because it's not included in the house square feet.
Yeah, and I would probably list it just the same without adding value to the house for the sunroom, unless you maybe added some half value. So if it was, what did it say, 360? So you could maybe do or even $10 a square foot, to be really honest, for something like a sunroom. It's really just like a covered porch, you know. You're going to see porches have values in appraisals, and patios and things like that, but they might be like $5,000. So maybe if it's covered like a sunroom, just give it $10,000. One of those little anomaly things.
Our in-ground pools, they don't have value either.
Not a whole lot. In fact, most appraisers will tell you they're actually like a decrease of value in Washington.
Oh, okay, good to know. Thank you.
So I do give them value. I give them a little value, and it's really hard to try to convince your clients who have been maintaining a pool and have it in great shape. I mean, not like a seaweed pond, but like a nice pool that it doesn't have value. I'll sometimes set it at like $10,000 or $15,000, but that's it. And then also, because it's my job, alert them that an appraiser may not give it value at all.
Is it the same, I imagine, for hot tub?
Hot tub's a little bit better as long as it's working, but it doesn't really have a lot of value anyways either. I mean, I think I'd probably say 5,000 max, if any, right?
Right.
Most banks, let me give you an example. Most banks are not going to want to pay in the price of a house for a hot tub.
Right.
So
I had a question. Do you take into account the like monthly cost of HOA dues when you're comping condos?
No. I do when I'm listing it as far as the marketability. So we are going to have a conversation. My gosh, your dues are $560 a month, right? That's going to limit the amount of people that can make this affordable. It might actually slow down the process of you selling, but I'm not going to change necessarily the price for it. My comps are going to be just like the other condos in the community. Yeah. All right, let's do this next one, you guys. All right. Who hasn't tried it yet? Let's try one. Which is the first thing that you would do? What would you adjust first on this one? I'll go through the pictures here as we look. This actually looks like a shed, but it has a garage door, which would be that third garage, I would assume.
The square feet?
This has some interesting counters. Yeah, let's do square feet. So minus, right? Because this is bigger than mine, so I need to make it like mine. Minus 16,200. Wish if I had a thing for Cloud CMA, I wish they could just have my fields totally think like, and I'll just put a dollar value. You know what I mean? Like I just want some basic ones that you put in there, so I don't have to retype them every time. But I'm not so lucky on that yet. Troy, if you could just convince Cloud CMA to do that for me, that'd be great. So bedrooms and bathrooms are the same, which is great. Similar age, great. It does have a 3-car garage. And then let's go through these pictures really quick. I know they're not that huge on this screen, but it's got some updated tile and what I would assume is some updated cabinets, but with like kind of some cheesy detail, right? Like that looks like a homeowner special almost, where they added like some, oh, that's so cute, let's stick it on the front of our stove. But at the same time, I think that they would. And these are tile counters. I wouldn't think that most people think they're that great, but I'm guessing that they're a little bit newer if they're consistent with that backsplash. What does everybody else think?
Yeah. It's funny, it says updated with custom cabinets.
Yeah, they're custom.
Yeah, they are.
Looks like poor choices.
Poor choices. I agree. That's what I tell my kids. Make good choices. This is not it. And like this cabinet, which I assume is a reclaiming kind of an old cabinet, because it looks like it has like a maybe bread microwave drawer and then like a curtain. I mean, by the way, you guys, do not let your clients get away with leaving curtains over closets and doorways. It's not, I mean, live that way, fine, but it's not great for selling. Don't let them get away with it.
I have a question.
Yes.
With respect to the CMA that you're in right now, that's can facilitate adjustments, and the page that's used more for generating leads, where you can type in the address and your name.
Yes. Oh
yeah. Do you advise avoiding that one as far as coming up with a quick CMA?
It's probably not going to come up with a very good one. Yeah. So it's going to probably most likely, and I haven't used that in years, so bear with me on any current knowledge of it. But it most likely is going to pull the same garbage comps that it does if you try to have it pull its own comps, I would guess, which makes it really, really difficult. You know, at this point, both of my daughters, one's 11 and one's 21, and my 21-year-old is a licensed agent, and she knows all these numbers off the top of her head. I definitely know them off the top of your head. So I would really stress saying, hey, at some point, maybe do a market valuation a week until you really know this stuff, because it's going to become super easy for you. Honestly, you can have that thing say, I'd love to get you more information. Let me research it for you. And then you can almost get to the point where you can look at the comps, you know, and be like, oh, I just mentally adjusted that. I mean, really, you know, like you can almost get to the place where you can do CMAs in your head really, really fast, just because you know. So it would be probably easier for you to just do them. And maybe, honestly, the best practice is getting those leads and doing an actual CMA for them. So you can sit in front of them and deliver it to them.
Anna, in Cloud CMA, if you set up that lead generation landing page, you can uncheck the automatic thing. So it will just email you when someone fills it out. So then you can do it by hand.
Yeah. And what an opportunity to be like, you know what, I filled this out. There's maybe something to explain, so you have as much information as possible. It's complimentary. I never say free. I say complimentary. People hate free things. And let's sit in front of you. And then that gives you the opportunity to really sell that professionalism and how much you know about the pricing of their home, more than anybody else will, I guarantee it. I mean, I when I go up to head against other real estate brokers, sometimes if I'm going to say, hey, what did they bring in? Let's take a look, you know, and it's literally 3 pages printed off the MLS, you guys. It's just nothing. It's nothing. And they've been in the business for 25 years, right? It's not just lack of knowledge or lack of time in the business. It's really just lack of knowledge. So this house, so if you were an appraiser in this house, it has some peach backsplashes here. I mean, I think it's probably well maintained, like it says, but it's not really updated. So it's got some updates in the kitchen. I would say that those are not old cabinets. They're newer, even though they don't appeal to everybody. They're newer, right? So let's just be moderate and say the upgrades for our place are $10,000 more than that one. How's that sound? Because that one's in good shape. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. And then, of course, garages. We're going to lose some credit there, right? How much do I get on garages here? How much am I taking off?
5.
5 or 7,500, which that garage looks dinky, so I'd only give it 5.
Well, I have a 1-car garage.
Well, does this have 3?
It's a 10,000 per garage. Yeah, it has 3.
10,000.
I'm going to do 20 because I've only got a 1-car garage. They've got a 3-car garage. Yep. And that can change. Garages I've seen anywhere from 5,000 to 7,500 to 10,000 per with an appraiser. I more often see 10,000. So again, once I'm adding and subtracting from different things, it's all going to come out in the wash for the most part, right?
And you're subtracting. Oh, sorry. And you're subtracting it because you want it to be exactly like yours or as close to yours as you.
Yep. Yep. So in order to find the average price for all 4 of these properties, I need to make them all like mine by adjusting the components, if that makes sense, right? So let's go to the next one. I think that's about it for that one. All right.
Hey, Anna, do you do any adjustment for like in these little ramblers here? Some of them are going to maybe have electric heat, electric forced air, or even baseboard for that matter. And then say your home has natural gas, do you give any kind of adjustment for that, or do you kind of keep that in the back of your mind when you're doing maybe an upgrade adjustment or something?
Neither. So really the appraiser doesn't have a whole lot that they're going to do with that. It makes it more marketable to some people if they know, right? Because most, if you know, you do know on baseboard heat, but you do want forced air, right?
Yes.
But they don't, I've never seen it so far on appraisal to give it more value because of that. So I will not either, because I want it to be really like that. But I also know maybe when I'm getting ready to list it, gosh, it's more marketable to me. It's got a little bit more value. Let's just kind of bump it up a little bit. I'm going to talk to my clients about that. This is based on the same as the appraiser's formula, but that does make it a little bit more marketable. It just doesn't add another dollar value unless the buyers decide it does, if that makes sense. So if they're coming in, they're going to pay for it, then it could be.
Right. So it just really, yeah. Okay, good. We're on the same page because it just really adds marketability.
Yes, exactly. Yep. Let's do this one on Stevenson. I am not going to give any contribution to this one. I'll let everybody else work it out with me. So feel free to tell me what you think. Lori, I bet you have lots of opinions. Lori's in the Eden Claw too.
Oh, so we've got the garage. God, I'm
Size.
the size. Bathroom.
Well, let's start with the first one. Somebody take on size. Why don't you figure out the size difference and what that number should be? I'll do it quietly on my cell phone so you can't see it on my screen. Mine's 1,500.
10,800.
10,800. And so are we adding or subtracting?
Subtracting.
You're subtracting.
Yep. Okay, what's next?
And we're going to subtract a garage bay.
What is that?
10.
I will go through some pictures for you. Blue.
Can I ask a question real quick?
Yeah.
So how come for the last one we only subtracted $10,000 for if they had 2 more bays than your house?
I did 20,000.
Oh, sorry. No, never mind. I just misunderstood. I
actually it was debated a little bit. Like, are we going to do 7,500 or 10,000 or whatever? I did do 20 because of that exact reason. They've got 2 more bays.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yes. All right, let's go back to these. And we've got some blue carpet, and this one we've got some rosy burgundy carpet. Pretty. And original cabinets.
Everything looks original. Or
everything looks original. So
yeah, close to it.
Because
20,000.
25 for sure, right? Like, let's
really?
Yeah.
How would you determine How would you determine that though? That's the part I'm getting stumped on.
Well, I agree with you. I don't think that there is actually a formula for that. So I really think it's like, gosh, you guys, if it's just carpet, if they just replaced upgraded carpet in their house, they get 5,000. That's it. I mean, it might have cost them $7,000 for the carpet, but that's it. They're really not doing. If they upgraded some counters, left the original cabinets, and did some carpet, you know, and flooring as well throughout the rest of the house, 10,000, right? But if you're starting to see like all the bathrooms done, the whole house is painted, you've got some hardy plank on the outside now or something, you definitely probably would go up to 25. So it really is going to be based on your own intuition for that one, just like it is for an appraiser, because an appraiser is going to be making that up based on his own intuition as well. But if your intuition is saying, as you're only looking at just these, I don't want you to feel fearful that you're going to do it wrong, because you're going to go through each house and just say, hey, you know, gosh, that one's worth 10,000 and that one's worth 5,000 and then that one's worth 15, and you're going to be able to compare them. Sometimes you go back and change it after you see some other stuff or whatever in your comps. But at the end of the day, if you even screwed up entirely and you gave something a $15,000 credit and it really was only worth a $10,000 adjustment, and we find the middle ground for all of these and then find that that average price, guess what? That screw up is only going to cost them like $1,500. It's not going to be that much because you're averaging it out between all of those. So it's not so much that you're going to totally screw it up by not doing the right maybe update credit for them or take off or whatever, because it's really not going to make a huge difference.
So then how come this house got an upgrade of 25,000 when they did nothing to it?
Well,
because we're making it like my house, right? So they did nothing to that, and their price that they sold for was based on the fact that they did nothing to that house. So they originally sold it for, you know, $413. Because I need to make all of these like my house to find the average between them. I have to make them exactly like my house. So if this one, for instance, is bigger than my house, I'm going to take off some value to make it like my house. This one has one more garage than my house, so I'm going to take off some value to make it like my house. But I've upgraded my house more, so I'm going to give it their house $25,000. So if I was going to list it today, I would have added some value because I upgraded my house, right? Does that make sense? If it doesn't, Morgan, that's okay. It is kind of like reverse a little bit of what you would normally think, because you're adding and subtracting from the comp's house to make them like your house. So you're not adding and subtracting to your price necessarily. You're trying to make them like your house. And if we need to step back afterwards and go through one too, I think that's totally fine. If it doesn't quite make sense, that's okay. Let's just do a couple and I think you'll get it.
The way I always think about it is act as if. So it's like act as if that house has the upgrades, which is why you're adding them.
Yes, you're acting as if I upgraded it, I would add extra value. Sure. Yeah.
That's how I always figure it out.
Mm-hmm. So we have the number here for the average for just those three houses. I didn't comp out the third one. You know, if I did another one earlier today, and I probably wouldn't have even included this one on Harding, and I'll tell you why. I'm just going to get you into Anna Head here. I can already see that this is it. I have kind of an idea of what this house is going to probably price out for. I can see that this house is listed at $400,000, and I can see it's a really similar size to mine, and yet it has 5 bedrooms. So in my world, I already know that I'm going to end up, by the time I comp this out, it's going to be less than $400,000, and yet I've got some great comps above $400,000. I'm probably going to dig around and find different comps. I probably don't use that one because I don't really want to take one. I can find, you know, 4 more comps, for instance, that'll keep me in the 452 range. I don't want to use that 400,000 one. I already know it's going to knock my price down because of the average of it. So I would never probably use that one. And so I just unclick it. So sometimes I add them to this and I'm like, yeah, I don't want that one now. I've got some good ones. But just to kind of give you in my thought process why I wouldn't even try to comp that one out unless I was desperate and I really needed that comp. But there are better comps out there for that one. So does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So let's do, I ended up doing this one earlier. I ended up at 438,500. And a lot of the same comps we used. There was a couple of different ones. So really it's about, you know, what they average out to after that. So there's only so many, let's go back to my, let's see, you guys. Oh, that's the other one. There's only so many comps that I probably would have used. What is this one? This one's a totally different one, isn't it? That's Seattle. Sorry. My screen covers up where all the participants are, where I'm supposed to click on this thing. Well, there we go. That's the one we did. So I would click this customize button first before I set a price. And you only want so many reports in there. First of all, you do not want to print more than 34 pages if you have to sit down and print it in front of somebody. Yeah. And you can put it on a tablet if you want to and open it that way with them if you don't want to go ahead and do that. I'm actually going to take this with me on a listing presentation before I even see their house. So a lot of times I will take out more photos because I really don't want to print that many pages. I may need some photos to try to verify price for them. So I'll know that in my heart if I probably have to. But I'm going to only take the suggested list price, the map of all listings, and the summary of comparable properties. Details, of course, and the first dozen if I need them. I can also take that off if I don't want that. So I may just need a couple because I know I'm probably just going to print this and end up throwing it away, and I don't want to waste that much paper. And then, of course, the adjustments, because I want to show them, at least on one or two houses, how we adjusted it so that they can understand how it works. You don't need to go through each one. Please don't burden them with going through. I adjusted each one of these, and here's how I did it, right? But they're immediately going to get it for the most part. They're going to be like, oh, that's okay. I see how you did that. I don't print a ton of other pages because most of the time, if I'm doing a listing presentation, I have not even come to this place. I've already done my listing presentation on how we list houses. And if you need help with that, we can do a whole nother class on that. Because this is just part of that journey. It really is solidifying your expertise in the pricing field. And then you're ready to list the house after you have this conversation. But truthfully, this is not the whole journey. It's not just what you're taking to them. And I will come in there and say, now that I know that you have AC or you have some square footage that nobody even told us about, that is not me. That is somebody else. That is probably Lori. Lori is not on me. I'm muting you. Now that I have this, I will tell them, you know what, you guys, I'm going to email you the updated report. I'm going to give you that extra value for the AC. I'm not going to print it back out again, obviously. Once I average it out, it probably won't make a ton of difference on there, but just so you know, I want to update it as much as we possibly can. And so whatever you're going to have there, I actually click out of making my adjustments over to customize and back to listings. It's just an Anna trick, but I really truly don't feel like it averages out the houses the right way unless you click out of it and come back into it. Does that make sense? So like I've made all my adjustments and it seems like the average is the wrong number until I've gone customize and then back to listings again. I mean, maybe it's just me who uses my calculator to see if it's accurate, but I do. So we've got one here. This comes in at 440. Now I kind of want to show you this is the one that I did earlier, and here were some comps. And this is if we would have just taken what was on the neighborhood around there and used it as, like just used the market CMA report, for instance, from the MLS, and which a lot of agents are doing. All of a sudden, you have a sale price, an average of 428,000. Like we gained a lot of value just out the gate from doing it accurately. Sometimes it's the opposite direction, right? Sometimes people are, you know, when I do my listing presentation before, one of the questions that I stop at is most people have kind of a general idea of what they want for their house and they need an agent to either clarify it or get them to that place. Do you have an idea of what you hope your house sells for? And then I just sit there quietly and say no words at all, right? Because of that, people will, they always say, I'm so sorry. I know, I kind of looked on Zillow and it said, you know, 455, or then I know kind of where this conversation is going, right? You hear that pounding? That's my.
You ask that, sorry, do you ask that question before you go through show them all of this? Okay.
Yeah. And I already know, because I already done this homework. I already know exactly what I'm going to tell them the price is for the house, but I kind of have a vision then on how we're going to end up having this conversation, right? You mentioned 450, and I know that, so we're going to really look at it more like what an appraiser does and more accurate than say Zillow or some of those things that just really can't figure those things out, you know? Or I've already come in with a price. We'll absolutely cover that in detail later, but that gives me a really good idea. Thank you. Right. You know, and then I just move on from there until we get to this pricing conversation.
Can you repeat how you phrase that question again?
Yeah. Most people have an idea of what they hope their house sells for, and they are looking for me to either clarify that for them or get them to that place.
Thank you.
What is that price point where you, or what do you think it's worth? So people, I mean, and without fail, I'm telling you, they will always apologize. I'm so sorry. I did look on Zillow, and I thought, like, it's okay. I look on Zillow too. You know, I want to see what it says about my house. That doesn't mean I know that it's absolutely accurate. In fact, Redfin says my house is worth $150,000 less than what it just appraised for. So not always accurate. But they can go both ways. Zillow and Redfin, you know, people don't have to make excuses for feeling bad about it. They both sometimes go in totally opposite directions. Sometimes Redfin is way below or way above, or sometimes in just cookie cutter neighborhoods, they're both pretty close. I mean, really, I mean, if it's a housing development that has similar houses, they're usually pretty close. So, but you can beat them easily by being somebody who knows something about your market and what you're actually talking about. I mean, if they try to tell you why isn't the Redfin price right, and you don't have this information in front of you, what do you have to deliver? Nothing. So, okay, so that is it. But as you can see, we got well, about 12,000 in this case. Sometimes it's much more significant, and sometimes it's not. So you got usually listed. Now, if I was going to take this information and say, now where do we position your house in the market? After all of that, I would have brought this report. I would have brought, for Enumclaw, I would go back to the MLS, and I always bring this report with me, just because I think it's information that's easy to attain. So I'm going to look for everything that's pending, sold, or active in Enumclaw. And I'm really only going to probably do solds past 90 days. That still gives me more than 100 numbers. So let's just say 30 days, just out of curiosity. It's under 100 there for that. You can't do a CMA report if you've got over 100 matches. So that's the only reason I'm trying to find that. And also it's just too much data. But I might not want any of this data because it's really, there's a lot of new construction in there too. So in this case, I probably would say like 1980 minus for anything with this home. And so we can really still go up to the 180 days, but, or 90, just kidding, cannot. But that's still 45 houses. So that gives me a really good idea of what, and I'm not going to narrow it down in this case to one stories because I'm not doing it like an appraiser or anything like that. I just want to know the general overall condition of Enumclaw, right? So I'm going to go in there and I'm just going to quickly select all. I'm going to hit the CMA button and I'm only going to use the portrait page here. If I clicked through that too quickly, don't hate me. I have to learn how to slow down. So I already know, like I probably could have spent some more time doing this, but I don't need $1 million house to comp out my stuff, right? And then I've got some higher priced houses because they've got big parcels of land and stuff. So in a lot of places like maybe East Tacoma or something, this is not going to be a problem. I can just use this very simple report. In this case, it doesn't make sense. So again, it's one of those things you have to just use your kind of sensibilities on. So I'm going to go backwards and change the criteria on it. I'm just going to do 15,000 or smaller lots again.
Will you click through slowly this time?
Yeah, I will.
Thank you.
Okay, back here. So active, pending, inspection and sold. And I'm still just going to do the 90 days on the sold because really anything that was done, sold over, 90 days ago or 3 months ago, does it even matter anymore? It's changing so fast, right? And in this case, because we don't want to do new construction, I'm going to do 1980 minus because this is an older home. It's a 1963. A smaller than 15,000 square foot lots because there's a lot of big lots in Enumclaw. And then in square footage, I think that it's probably good to say minus 2,000 because we don't want to have to compare it, 2,400 square foot houses, because our clients or people that would be buying our house are not looking at that as a difference, right? It's very different price point. So we've really only got 24. Are we caught up with what I clicked on there? I don't want to move forward too fast because I talk too fast. Okay, I'm going to click on it. So we've got these. You can dig through if you want. That one's got a foundation issue. These are not as great, but like, look at this house. Like, this will really pique my interest, for instance, if I'm getting ready to list somebody's house. I mean, that looks weird to me.
What? This house just sold to, I think back in 2018.
Lori, what is the thing on the front?
I don't know. It looks like it's burned. I can't tell.
I think it's like tin. I think it's like rusty tin, like, I mean, it is Enumclaw. We do play banjos when we walk down the street, but it's
very weird. I'm wondering
if
that was
weird. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what it is. But anyways, it doesn't look like that great of a house. It's going to be very similar to my house, for instance. It's 1,600 square feet and mine's 1,500. And it's already listed at 450. So I really want to keep my eye on this house.
Yep.
It can't be a whole lot different, and it's not that great. So to me, that's a really solid comp. This one's 379 though, much smaller. I'm not super worried about this one. This one's probably priced below market because it really does have foundation issues. But if you don't know that, then you might be like, let me keep my eye on that one. It does say fixer. So anytime you see fixer, you can probably dismiss it if yours isn't one, right? This Kibler one is teeny, don't care.
So in running through these, are you not gonna see some of the same ones you just narrowed down? You should, right?
I will see. Yeah, I will. These are mostly pendings that I was looking at, and I didn't really put a whole lot of pendings in there. So once we get into this sold area, then we will see a lot of those.
Okay.
But this really is going to give me. So I'm just going to click on all of these. How's this? And go to my CMA report. Back to that one, which was just the portrait report. That's where I zipped past too fast. So do you guys see the portrait report there? Just adding that one. So I'm going to sit down with my client then and say, okay, here's where we're at. We know a little bit about these properties. We've determined that we can get we'll say $440,000 for your house if it appraised tomorrow, right? And we do know that this one is listed at 450. It's kind of an oddball house. We're not sure how people are going to react to it, but let's keep our eye on it, right? And then everything else is really listing and selling in about 13 to 16 days, right? It's coming off the market, and we have these three. These ones are, some interesting houses there, and they're not really comparable, but this one at similar square footage with the list price well below ours is something to think about, right? So we'll have to keep our eye on it. It's already been on the market for 9 days. Do we remember what that looked like? What was the deal with that, Lori?
That one.
Where's that one on Szymanski, Lori?
Yeah, I think that's the one on Szymanski, and it's the one with the foundation, and it's been moved.
Oh, it's the farmhouse, right? So we're not worried about that either. Most of my clients cannot fix the foundation. And they really have to have a rehab loan for that house. Yeah, and then this last one is 1,000 square feet, and it's a 2-bedroom, 1-bath, and
that
most
has
people are
a
gonna
dump on Battersby too, I think.
Okay, good. Glad you know. I'm gonna call Lori when I need some help in Enumclaw. So these other ones that so basically there's no actives that are contenders with ours, right? I'm feeling pretty good about our price, honestly. We're 10,000 below this one that just doesn't look like it's anything worth shouting about. But maybe with knowing that, and I know that the average for the pendings is 377, but I do know that the average for the solds is 405, and they're going up about $5,000. I'm not seeing the same market trends as where we're doing everywhere else, right? Like if we're trying to put an offer on a house somewhere else, we're like, oh my gosh, it's got 15 offers in, a day. We already know we can bump up the price.
There's still no place we can see how many offers are on a pending or how many offers they got. There's no way to know that.
You can call the agent.
Short of calling.
Yeah, short of calling. But if you're on the buyer side right now, you know that everything's got 15 offers.
Right.
It's just crazy sauce, right? So, but these are still having an average of 2 weeks on the market. So I'm just saying, hey, if you're going to bump it up, I would only probably bump it like $5,000. Again, there's no formula for this. You just have to make up your mind what you're going to do. But I would say, hey, let's let the market bear if it's going to get more with multiple offers, but we don't want to way overprice something like this when we know it's sitting on the market longer than, say, maybe some other cities. Or let's just price it right. Let's just price it for exactly the 420 or 440 or whatever we came up with there. And know that we're really maxing out the market on that, but we know it's a beautiful house. And I don't feel like comfortable going up any further than that, but we'll let the market, bear it with multiple offers. If buyers want it, they're going to let us know by price, right? If it was going longer than this, like what if we were creeping into November and it wasn't like this last year where we were moving and shaking in November, I might say, let's be the best house on the market. Let's try to get as many people through the door and maybe like competitively price it. Either we're going to price it exactly right, or maybe we're going to go 5,000 below what we see the market's bearing on that. So that's how you're going to use that information. Does that make sense to anybody? Do you have any questions on that?
That's great. I did have a question. I saw recently in the MLS, and I wasn't sure how to do it, but can you plot this information on a graph as well?
On statistics, you can.
Stats page. Okay. I can look into it as well independently.
I just wanted to.
There's some different pages in here, honestly, that you can do. Like, go dig through each one of the comps here. I like portrait just because in most cases, I use portrait again for price changes as well. Like if we are in a market, we have to reduce prices, and I'm like, hey, you need to see the whole overall market. I get it that when I price your house, the appraiser is looking within 2 miles. But when a buyer comes to look, they're looking at the city of Federal Way, right? They're not looking at like, what's 2 miles within this neighborhood of this house when they're looking at the city of Federal Way. So let's look at the whole thing. And if we see that it's a little bit lower, for instance, or the market's shifting in that thing, I use that report for price changes too.
I just wanted to share one of my favorite tidbits from the Script Champions thing. Was that the market won't let you underprice the house the way it is right now.
That's a great verbiage. I really, really love it. So when people are like, no, I don't want to, and you say, no, the market will not let you underprice the house. We're gonna price it what we know that the appraiser is going to find. Now let's use our data, and if buyers come in, we'll know right away because they're going to be starting to competitively bid against your house if it has more value to them. That's a great thing. One of the things that we also use this for is if we do get multiple offers, I find that the most helpful thing is, okay, we knew what price we thought was a very comfortable one for the appraisers. I checked to see if there was anything else that's going to be able to boost that price up that closed before we get our appraisal. Because even the day before I list a house or the day of, I check again just to see if there's anything. If houses are closing 40,000 above what we listed them for, you can probably see some new comps and up it a little bit, right? So just keep your eye on that. You can just adjust it in your CMA if you need to. I'm going to go back around. So if we get multiple offers, for instance, and we have this set price and we say, yes, it's worth 440. That's all it's comping out to based on that. Then that gives us the opportunity to be very strategic with our clients. We're going to start to ask for things like 22 ADs, which waives the high appraisal, right? We're going to say, hey, if you want to list or you want to offer way more for my house, I need you to show me the money. I need you to say that, yes, we can cover the difference, because sometimes a 50,000 above list price offer means absolutely nothing when they've got nothing to cover that, when it's still, and we're very confident where we know it's going to appraise. Appraisers can usually find somewhere within like 10,000 above what your number was. They can be creative, right? So I say, you know, if we got an offer 10,000 above this, I feel like we could really push them to try to find that value there. Anything above that, you're probably not going to get. So why would you bother taking a really high offer if we already know it's not going to appraise and they don't have the money to cover it? Let's try to push for the people that are going to do a higher offer and offer you a 22AD, which means they're going to cover that low appraisal in cash. And you're going to be the hero for your clients, and or you're just going to be very clear with them. We saw the appraisal, we kind of have an idea that it may go a little bit above that based on the market conditions, but if it doesn't, I want you to know that there's a possibility it won't appraise, right? And then you're still the hero. There's no surprises when all of a sudden it doesn't appraise and they're like, how could you let this happen, right? Because you've given them all of the information that you can provide for them. I think we're past time. I am so having such a good time, but I think we're at 3:07 now, you guys. Let's get some more questions. I love your questions. They're so much fun.
Just thank you. That was awesome. Very, very helpful.
Yeah, and you know, sometimes we take it again and again. I mean, you can join me again anytime, because sometimes, I mean, I think every time, like any class, you learn something new every time, or I have, honestly. I'm consistently learning from appraisers. I annoy them. Sometimes I follow them around and be like, hey, so what are you doing with this? What's that? You know, but this is really helpful too on my own sales or my own refis. In this last year, I did 5 refis, and I brought my own comps for them. And I said, I know you probably have your own, but they're so hard to find. So I just thought I would give you some. And I had one of these market valuations, and they came in exactly they just used it, which was great, because it wasn't just a bunch of pieces of paper, right? It was actually like adjusted like they do. It was awesome. So I got exactly what I wanted, which I really like. Anything else? I'm going to put everybody back on the screen and quit screen sharing here. So hold on, if I can figure it out. Oh, ta-da! There's all your faces. Anybody else have any questions? Is anyone struggling with figuring out how to add or subtract from the comps? That we need to do like a little small, Morgan, I see your head. It's okay. I think either we can just talk through it with one. If there seems to be like a number of people that are really struggling it with, maybe we'll just do like a little breakout Zoom or something like that and work on a couple together. And Morgan, otherwise you can just call me and we'll walk through it.
Can you
Sorry
put
to
your email or phone number in the chat? Or I'll just write it down here too if you.
I will put it in the chat. Hold on.
Thank you.
I missed a little section. I had to respond to an email, but when you had that screen up in Cloud CMA where you did the adjustments, there's after you pulled those comps from the MLS, brought them in, you just click. I imagine, I recall actually, I think I saw it at one point in time, but there's like just an adjustment button where you can click that, and that's where you add like give and take garage or.
Yeah. It as soon as you hit the adjustment button, it drops it down like a drop down, and you just add whatever you want there.
Okay, awesome.
There you go. In the chat. I don't see. I'm missing all of that stuff. Is there anything important in the chat that I need to see that I was talking through? Thanks, Lindsay.
When I've seen, because I'm new to Cloud CMA, but the examples I've seen, they do include like a Zillow as not a comparable, but they're just showing like, here's what Zillow did and here's what we came up with. Like, do you include that usually?
I don't know. I have a general idea before I go there anyway. So just to be, really clear, I mean, I'm going to walk in knowing what.
I mean, kind of to like I would imagine to preemptively explain to the client about the differences between Zillow's price, because everybody goes, Zillow says my house is worth blah, blah, right? So
it kind of gives me an idea too when I'm going to have that conversation without, the line that I use to get an idea of what people think their house is worth. And yet sometimes the people have no idea, right? So I actually need them to tell me. But I absolutely have walked in there, Googling their address and figuring out what Zillow says about their house and what Redfin say about their house. I know, right? And that gives me kind of an idea, like, to know I'm prepared. You know, what if neither one of them came close to my price? Then I'm stoked. I'm excited to tell them what I came up with. And the data's there. I don't even have to worry about it. I'm not having to worry that, I mean, there's always a chance that an appraiser will not find that same value because he's a one-off, right? But it's very rare. It's very, very rare. I haven't had to have an appraisal competition with anyone in probably over 4 years. So. Anybody else? What are some things you're struggling on appraisal? Thanks, Dawn. Anybody struggling on appraisal stuff that they just don't get, that they've had something hard lately that they couldn't deal with? Or
I have just a quick question. I don't know if somebody asked this already, but do decks or fences play a role in this at all?
Decks have some value. Fences don't. Okay. I mean, they cost a ton of money to install, so they should, but they don't. Hold on one second. I actually had one. Maybe I don't have it anymore. Let me see if I have. Nope, I don't have any more, so bear with me. But I actually had one up. I think decks are about like $2,500, something like that. And that's if they just don't have one at all. So they give it value if they have one, but they don't. I don't see them doing a lot of takeaway for not having one.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Will your deck be available via email, like with the pricing?
Like for all of those adjustments?
Yes.
Yeah, so usually you can get a hold of Goldie, and Goldie can just send you a link to it. Usually what we do is like a Google share on that, which it works for me because if I update it, you'll have it updated.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. It's a self-created class, so you know it's not like, I just wanted to share with people what was going on.
How would you use, this is I guess a real life scenario that I'll definitely trust what you say as an expert, but I had a buddy that I just was reaching out to this week just because we hadn't talked in a while to ask him if he still planned on moving in the summer.
Yep.
And he said, you know, well, right now our project is my wife and their siblings are trying to sell a house or getting ready to sell a house. So of course the years go up and I pay attention. And it kind of was curious to why you didn't call me already, but I think it was a family issue. And
sure.
They said that they were going to a relationship that they've had for the last 15 years. And this is his second wife. So I get, he wanted to stay neutral, I think. But the link that he sent me was from Redfin's appraisal. And he's like, there's no way that this appraisal is right. And he seemed to think that it was low, and it was at $860,000, right? So when I pulled it up in the CMA, the listing on Redfin says it's 3 bedrooms, 3 baths, but the tax records or the information in Cloud CMA said it's 3 bedrooms, 1. And so just because I was out, I quickly sent him via text or via email the CMA one that just defaults when you put in the address, as I had mentioned earlier. But I still want to try to find a way to at least have an opportunity to make a presentation before they sign on the dotted line.
Yeah.
All of the stuff that you shared today should be the framework of what that conversation looks like, right?
Yeah, so I absolutely, like if I had that conversation with my buddy, I think first of all, as real estate brokers, one of the great things is, man, you get your feelings hurt a lot by people that don't use you, right? Like your feelers get hurt. Your best friend, sister's brother, it's, you know, they've got an agent in the family and or there's politics behind it for somebody's relative or whatever. Oh God, it's horrible, right? So I will tell you one thing is if for some reason you don't get that listing, but I believe you are going to if you've got this. One of the things that I tell people when they try to, I'm so sorry, Anna, I know I had to use it for this. I'm like, I totally appreciate that. Like, you don't want to cause controversy. Will you send me a referral? And they go, I would love to. Take another hit from that, right? Like, if you don't get it for whatever reason, I just say, I know you love me. Would you send me a referral? And they would love to. And often I do get them from them, even though they didn't use me.
Right.
So, you know, and then once they start believing in you, they fight for you a little bit harder too, honestly. Like, once they send you a referral, then all of a sudden they're fighting for you a little bit more. So, anyways, that's a side note. But I would say, you know what, none of those online valuation things can be accurate because they do not know the house. And there's some anomalies there that we can already see. Like, for instance, your tax records do not show those extra bathrooms. Let's take a look at those and get the real facts and look more of what an appraiser is going to do as opposed to just a valuation. We're going to look at their systems. We're going to try to determine that. And that way, you know what? Even if you don't use me, you've got more in your arsenal. You know exactly what you're looking at there, right? Well, by the end of the day, once you know more than anybody else out there, gosh, I can't see them going with anybody else, to be really honest, right? Like, they can't go with Redfin. Right. Redfin obviously doesn't know what it's talking about. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Hey, Anna.
Yeah.
It's Travis here. What are your thoughts on if you have a client that says, you know, we're going to sell our house and we're debating on what updates to do to the house, or is it even, you know, sometimes they're asking like I see homes selling for 108 to 110% of list price. Should I even bother? Should I just go ahead and sell it? And I'm involved, you know, when I'm working with buyers, I'm looking at some of these houses with no updates that are escalating far beyond the original list price.
Yeah. So I think that that's an easy conversation to have too with this information, because we already know that they're not going to get more than $25,000. Sometimes the conversation is, I'm going to go over, I'm going to bring a real specific pricing formula and a system for you so you can look at, and I'm going to walk through the house and tell you things that you don't need, or maybe in some cases what you don't need to do, right? And I'm going to be real honest with you about it. And they're like, oh, that sounds great, you know? And maybe that conversation in this market is you really don't need to, but maybe if they don't, they're really hitting those houses that are listed at the 380 margin when they should be up in the houses that are at the 425, and those are their comps. So instead of trying to escalate their price by just replacing their carpet, you know, they could be at the neighborhood that's more in the 425 ranges. And right now, with the way that it looks, they're probably in the 380s and hoping they get a higher price, right? So much better for them to do it. It really does have to make sensible or common sense to be able to do some of those at this point. Truthfully, a lot of places don't need a ton of extra stuff to be done to it. And then yet, sometimes when people are trying to get to the utmost high reaches of their price point, do the work, you know, like put the new carpet in. You've got some really gross, like, you know, there's somebody died on your carpet. Stop it. You got to do the work to get to I'm going to try to get my hardest to get them to the highest price point possible and know that it's going to appraise. And we're selling it to the appraiser too, not just people. So we have to be able to sell it to the appraiser. He's got to see that value in it too.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. That being said, don't forget, I have an electrical contractor and a general contractor for roofing. So I'm going to do a little self-promotion there, and we can pay out of closing. So they're working on my house right now.
You said electrical and roofing?
Yeah.
That you have, like if you need a referral?
Yeah, if you want to refer people over, we love it, just because we work almost exclusively with real estate brokers, because, I mean, that's what I'm surrounded with, right? So, but we do a lot of work that comes out of closing for people, like if they need a new panel or something like that. Mm-hmm.
Okay, thanks.
That's,
Who's
yeah,
the
a little horn. It's not a horn suit, it's just self-promotion.
Anna, who's the roofer?
Brian and Bree and our team do it. Brian's been doing roofing. I mean, he's our electrician, obviously. He's our lead electrician. We do a ton of general contractor, but we really try to stick with electrical and roofing now. We probably do, this last year, we did probably 17 roofs during COVID.
Oh, well, I didn't know Brian was doing roofing. I've called him quite a few times for electrical stuff, you know.
I know.
Dumb little things. And you guys, just, I'm here to tell you, he will go even if the job's really small and $200, he really tries hard to fit us in and do it. So I would definitely.
It's really great. You know, when we need, because he lives with me, he knows what it means to have inspection and just to, we need an answer now. We don't need an answer in 2 weeks when you've got an appointment, right? So I really love that he runs out and he really understands like what you need to say with stuff if it needs to happen. So I appreciate that from him. Yeah, he does a ton of roofs. We did more roofs this year than we've done, and we just did that in the first part of the year for the most part, but he's got tons of years actually of roofing. It's just that we have focused so much on electrical, we didn't really focus on it, but we love roofs. And he's great price, Lori. Really great prices on him. I've not seen anybody who beats it. He's just so reasonable on him.
So does he have like you know how realtors will ask for a certified roofing contractor? Would he go under that, or is it more of a general?
No, we are all licensed, bonded, certified, and insured for roofing. I don't know if it would be a certified roofing contractor if there's a specific thing beyond that. Like, we are not just a roofing contractor, but we also really are very conscious of what roofs are transferable warranties, which is also a really big deal. A lot of those roofs that you're getting are not transferable warranties. So, you know, if your person's getting ready to sell their house, you hopefully want a transferable warranty on it, right? Most of the brands of roofing don't have transferable warranties.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Good deal.
That's way more information than CMAs, isn't it?
Can I ask you an investment question?
Yes.
You said you collect houses. I saw on social media at one point, and I was just wondering, you said 5 refis in the last year. Do you pull cash out? And if you do, like, what ratio are you comfortable taking it out at?
Well, you can only get 75% of value on a cash out refi at this point. And your interest rate's a little bit higher when you do an investment anyways. So if you do cash out on any refi, it's still higher than that. So I really didn't do a ton of cash out refis. I really try to focus on getting most of my investments sold or paid off. So any kind of money I make off of them, I'm paying off in the next 10 years. I will actually be able to retire, probably pulling in about $200,000 in 10 years with just those investment properties paid off. So that's a really big goal. I've got tons of stuff to share on that if everybody ever wants to know on how to take investment properties and be able to retire fast. But my goal is to pay them off faster. So if my interest rate's higher and I've added more bulk to the loan, it's probably not going to pay off a lot faster. That being said, if maybe your goal is to just buy them, flip them, rent them, and then pull money out to buy your next one, that's an opportunity that you can do as well. My biggest thing, I guess, that I say, anytime anyone refis and pulls money out, or anytime, because of the fact of compound interest and those kinds of things, anytime I do a loan on something, I ask myself, am I willing to work the length of that loan? So anytime I do a home loan, am I ready to work another 30 years? Am I? Anytime I refi my house and it's got a whole bunch paid off, am I really willing to say, oh, I'm 45, I sure hope I can work for 30 more years to pay off my loan, right? I don't want to do that. Anytime I buy a car, do I want to add 5 more years of working to pay that off? So I try to be really conscientious of that. And does it make sense for me to actually do it in the long term? Yes, it makes sense for the interest rate, to do it for some of my loans, but I don't maybe want to add some money back onto that mortgage because I want it to be paid off. So it's always like a pluses and a minus depending on your long-term goals, I think. Yeah. But if you need another duplex to retire, and you can only get it from pulling out money out of one of your rental properties or your home, then I'd say go for it. And I loved Keller Mortgage. I did all of mine with Keller Mortgage. I don't know if anyone's used them personally.
Oh, do they do loans in California?
Yeah.
And do you have a person that is a point of contact, like a human?
Yes. I can connect you with Jeremy. I love Jeremy. I think he's so inundated, though. He's not taking a whole lot of new but I know he's just real, when they're really good, they get busy.
Yeah.
And he was just really busy, but that might have been when we had the whole refi boom too. So he might be taking new, and that was the last time I talked to him about it. So
Does Keller do cash out refis?
Mhm.
They do, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and so I mean, having no lender fees, $1,000 at closing, I bought down my rate even more. I mean, most of my, we are seeing home loans at 2.5 or 2.8 or whatever, but not usually on an investment property. And mine are all well under 4. So that's a pretty low rate for an investor. So, but I got to use that $1,000 and buy down my rate even more, and it was awesome. I loved it. Mm-hmm. Anybody else? We can talk about tons of investing if you want to know about investing. I got lots of stuff to share. Oh, I can't hear you. You're not on mute, but I can't hear you.
No sound.
Nope. You type it in the chat box.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now.
Okay, yeah. I had to change my headset to speaker. So I was wondering, I mean, I just heard you say about electrical and roofing. So is that your own business you're talking about? Or...
Yes, I'm not the talent, obviously. I am not out there changing any panels for anybody, so don't expect me to show up to do that. But we have a long time, he's 26-year electrician here, and then my daughter actually is just doing residential electrical for us as well.
So what does your daughter do? I'm sorry.
She's also a residential electrician, but she's not a journey, so she's not going to come out on her own. Yeah, she's learning. She's great though. Yeah, that's Bree. Bree had a really interesting 2020. I mean, she sided houses, roofed houses, did electrical. By the time she's done, she could probably build her own house. I don't know what she's going to do, but.
So the way it works, the person can come out here and do the quotation and then like look at.
Yeah, so roofing, Brian usually will pull what's called an Eagle View report, gives them how big the roof is, what the valleys are. He usually doesn't even have to go out to do it. But he'll give you a quote, based on that information. And then if there's some problems with the underlayment or something like that, they can make those adjustments. But electrical, he'll most likely go out and take a look at the panel. A lot of times though, for your guys' information, most people can just send, if it comes from a buyer and it's an inspection report or a pre-inspection, you can just send it to us. I mean, he looks at that. If they've got enough pictures, he can tell you exactly what's going on with it. So, and give you a price, which is great.
So the Eagle View report is just like taking a snapshot on the top and then looking at what change.
Yeah, it's quite a bit like that. It's a little bit more into, it's for roofers. So it gives us the amount of linear feet of valleys and valley metal we need, and how many bundles of roofing we need, things like that. But other than that, it's just a comprehensive drone photo basically. So.
Okay. But if just somebody needs a maintenance roof, do they do that also? Like somebody just
not usually, if they're going to do pressure washing, things like that. Is that what you mean?
No, like say, we had a storm last week and somebody, his roof is damaged.
Yeah. Yep. They do repairs. Yep. And skylights. Most of the time people don't replace their skylights when they replace their roof, which never ever do that, you guys. Please just replace it. It's like $300. Just replace the stupid skylight. But